Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Maybe. Time will tell. Maybe. It could well be. I mean, it appears so. From what I just heard, you can listen for yourself. The audio soundbite's coming up. Hi, folks. How are you? We're jamming here at the EIB network. El Rushmo at Christmas time at 800-282-2882. And the email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. I'm just telling the staff there on the other side of the glass that my little tech blogger buddies, who really literally hate me, are just going to be beside themselves today. They're not going to know how to process this. They are going to be confused and angry and questioning the purpose of life. All because Bill Gates went on CNBC's Squawk Box this morning and was asked by the hostette there, Becky Quick, Donald Trump mentioned he had a phone call with you. How'd that conversation go, Mr. Gates?
I had an opportunity to talk to him about innovation. A lot of his message, in the same way that President Kennedy talked about the space mission and got the country behind that, I think that whether it's education or stopping epidemics, and in this energy space, there can be a very upbeat message that his administration is going to organize things, get rid of regulatory barriers, and have American leadership through innovation.
Bill Gates just compared the Trumpster to John F. Kennedy in a favorable way. And Bill Gates is joining a lot of these other corporate people who, during the campaign, were savaging Trump and talking about their devotee status for Hillary Clinton. And so many of them now, after Trump has been elected, are not just sidling up to Trump, but they are literally singing his praises after having met him. I mean, this is incredible. But in the same way President Kennedy talked about space mission and got the country behind that, I think whether it's education or stopping epidemics or this energy space, and I don't think he's talking about global warming here. I think he's talking about energy creation, maybe innovation in energy creation. He said there can be a very upbeat message that Trump's administration is going to organize things, get rid of regulatory barriers, and have American leadership through innovation. Gates further said that he spoke with Trump on the phone, discussed the power of innovation. Gates said, of course, my whole career has been along those lines, and Trump was interested in listening to that, and I'm sure there will be further conversations. Gates also said of Trump, a lot of Trump's message has been about where he say things not as good as he would like. Well. But there is another possibility. It's remote. Very, because I think Gates is being honest here, but go to audio soundbite 14. Maureen Dowd, the famous Modo, was on a late-night so-called comedy show on NBC last night, and the host, a guy named Seth Meyers, asked Modo this question. You make this argument that Donald Trump's very susceptible to compliment, and he's also very susceptible, in your opinion, to the last person he's talked to. And so that's affecting the way people would deal with him.
Right. That's why his staff jockeys to get the last appointment of the day, because the last person who talks to him has a lot of sway. And, he overflatters people, and he likes to be overflattered because basically his ideology is his ego. So, everybody in Washington, from President Obama to Mitch McConnell, is trying to flatter him.
What?
It's almost like a host body, and they think they can change his mind or pour their agenda in with some flattery. And that worked with Putin.
Everybody in Washington is trying to flatter him? In what Washington is she paying attention? But anyway, you get the point here that Modo is saying a lot of people, in order to trick Trump, this is what she's saying, A lot of people, in order to fool Trump, a lot of people setting Trump up by flattering him, by telling him how wonderful he is, by telling him how great he is. And in this way, she is basically saying here, this is how Trump's enemies and opponents can disarm him and then be poised to sneak up on him for the kill. You're right. Kiss his butt and you own him. Is what. And so I played that bite following Gates because I'm sure that Modo, upon hearing Gates, says, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Gates is flattering the guy. Gates doesn't really think this guy's JFK. Come on. He's just flattering Trump to get on Trump's good side. This is how. In fact, folks, that is not how you deal with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not unsure of who he is. It's exactly, however, how you must deal with Barack Obama. This is interesting to me because this is the precise way you have to deal with Obama. You have to regard Obama as singularly great, uniquely great, unprecedented, a special kind of smart. All that's how you do it. He demands it practically. It's how he looks at himself. Is there any doubt in your mind? I mean, I'm sure you've heard Trump praise Obama. We have reported to you on this program the details of that. He talks about how he loves talking to Obama, and Obama's advising him, and Obama's being very helpful, and he really, really, really has grown to like Obama. You know my theory on that. Now, I got to be very careful. I don't want you people to tell anybody so that Obama would hear it, because that kind of give it away. But my theory is that Trump is very much aware of how dangerously and precariously perched the country is for now the next, 6 weeks, 5 weeks. And the last thing that you want to do is irritate and provoke the guy who still has control of all the levers of power. And so you go in there and you regard him as a superior, as smarter than you, really, really helpful. Talk about how much. Now, don't tell Obama. And if you tell Obama this, then the ruse is destroyed. Just keep it between us. Oh, no, I'm not. The drive-bys don't listen, and Media Matters is not going to highlight this. So we can keep this among ourselves. But I think it's fascinating if this is how they think they have to deal with Trump. I actually think Gates is being honest. I think Gates is like many people. Talked about it earlier this week. My gosh, I met the guy. I can't believe what a nice guy he is. I can't tell how many times I hear that, even now after 30 years. I can't believe you're such a nice guy. I mean, my gosh, what people say about you, I didn't know what to expect. I thought you were going to walk in a room and start identifying all the liberals and start insulting them and kicking them out. I've actually had people tell me that. I mean, you don't do that. No, I don't do that. And by the same token, people are finding that Trump is not this monster that the drive-bys have made him out to be. I mean, he's a profoundly successful businessman, and that's what Gates is. So we'll see here. But I think people are in for a lot of shock and surprise, even more people who meet Trump. He's got, is it today or next week, that it must be next week because they're not talking. Trump's got this summit with all the Silicon Valley CEOs, including the Google Obama guys. They're coming in. And I will wager that not all, but a lot of them are going to come out of that meeting singing a much different tune than they will sing going in. And I'll tell you, folks, it does surprise me. We're talking about intelligent people here. We're talking about people who see themselves reported on in the media, who ought to know that much of what's said about them isn't true, and they might then assume or think that much of what's said about, say, somebody like Trump isn't true. But that's not how it works. You tend to believe what you read or watch, and it forms an impression, and then you meet whoever it is that you've created this impression that they turned out to be totally different, and you're flabbergasted. I think there's more of that coming, but I can't wait till after the program today to consult my tech blogs to find out how many of them are on the ledge threatening to jump and wondering what Trump had to pay Gates or offer Gates to get Gates to say what he said. After talking with Trump, Bill Gates says President-elect could be like JFK. Notice he didn't come out of the meeting and say, my gosh, I thought I was talking to Hitler. Oh, my God, I thought I was talking to Mussolini. Oh, my God, I thought I was talking to a fascist. We're in trouble. Oh, my God, this is worse than I need. He didn't say that. He came out comparing Trump to JFK and the moon program. Ladies and gentlemen, what is one of the things? It's an unfair question because there's so many possible answers. What would come to your mind first or second if I asked you the question, what have I said consistently about Obama in trying to get people to understand who he is? Answer: he's got a chip on his shoulder about this entire country from the founding forward because he thinks it's unjust and illegitimate, was a slave state and still is, and therefore is heavily balanced and biased against African Americans. And I've said that I can't tell you how many times. I've had people say, you know what, Russ, it's too pat. It's too simple. It's not, Obama's not that simple. It's got to be much more complex. No. It is that simple because Obama's a liberal. He's a liberal radical. As such, that's who he is. He's not the only one who looks at America that way. I mean, he's presiding over a country that in his eyes deserves to be in decline. He's presiding over a country for which he needs to apologize. Well, Obama gave an interview. He was on Comedy Central on Monday night. It was on a Daily Show that's hosted by Noah Trevor, or Trevor Noah. I forget which. It doesn't matter. And on this program, Obama said that America by no means has overcome the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow and colonialism and racism. America has by no means overcome any of that. Here's what he actually said. Grab audio soundbite number 3. It was last night, Comedy Central, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. And the question from the Comedy Central host: if you're a white person speaking about race, then you're just a person who's interested in race. If you're a person of color speaking about race, it's like, oh, the black thing started again. So the question I've always wanted to know is, how did you navigate that? Because we watched you do it. But I also wanted to know how you navigated that through your 2 terms. Now, does anybody know what he's asking here? Is he asking Obama, how did you navigate the fact that this is a racist country that doesn't want you in? Is that what he's asking? What was he asking? You don't know? Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Here's what Obama said.
Race continues to be this powerful factor in so many elements of our lives. We have by no means overcome the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow and colonialism and racism, but that the progress we've made has been real and extraordinary. If I'm communicating my genuine belief that those who are not subject to racism can sometimes have blind spots or lack appreciation of what it feels to be on the receiving end of that, but that doesn't mean that they're not open to learning and caring about equality and justice.
Well, it leftist gobbledygook there, but you heard the answer. No. My general theory is clear in my own mind about who I was, comfortable in my own skin, clarity about the way in which race continues to be this powerful factor in so many elements of our lives. So his legacy, setting it up here, his legacy is all about race. And I want to go on record. He's the guy, folks. He and the Democrat Party are the ones who made his regime all about race. His race defined his presidency. It defined everything about it. What you could say about him and what you could not. What you could think and what you could not. It paralyzed so much of this country in terms of criticism and opposition. And he's president of the United States. He's not a dictator. What he wants just doesn't automatically happen. But nobody had the courage, very few had the courage to stand up and oppose what he was doing because of the racial component. Racial strife in this country is maybe worse than definitely it's worse than when he took office. But I'm play this soundbite just to let you know that I know what I'm talking about. I know who these people are. I know how they think. And that chip on his shoulder is there, and his wife has it too. They do. And I think they're providing lip service here to the when they say that there's been incredible progress, because that's not what they focus on. They don't focus on the incredible progress. That's a throwaway line. The Democrat Party is a party of identity politics. The Democrat Party is a party that seeks its power by putting its members into groups of victims who have grievances against America. And the grievances are all rooted in the American founding. And it has led us to where we are. And there has now been a huge backlash against it. And Obama admits, going out of office, that race is his legacy. A brief timeout. We'll come back. Don't doubt me on this stuff, folks. Do not ever doubt me. As the program unfolds, we will continue with the latest on the whole hacking fantasy. Tell you a little about Rex Tillerson, who he is, where he comes from, and what the lines of opposition will probably be. Lots of other things. But I want to stick with President Obama here for just a second, because HBO has a new nightly newscast show called Vice. And Obama was on this program, Vice Special Report. He was on this show Friday night. Now, Obama came into office with me on his mind. This is not ego speaking, it's fact. 2 weeks after Obama was immaculated, he held a meeting in the White House with congressional leaders from both parties. And John Boehner was there, and Mitch McConnell from the Senate. There's about 8 or 9 Republicans here with an equal number, maybe a few more Democrats there. And Obama was laying down the law. And he was explaining how things were going to be, how they were going to work together to get things done, cross the aisle and all that happy horse manure. And Obama looked at the Republicans and he said to them, you've got to stop listening to Rush Limbaugh. That's not how things get done in Washington. And John Boehner looked around and said, what's that about? Boehner came down here a couple weeks later, had a meeting with him. He told me about it. He said, I don't know why he would say that. I said, Mr. Speaker, he was hoping that you or McConnell or somebody from your group there would walk to the microphones outside the White House, outside the West Wing, and agree with him that it was time to stop listening to Rush Limbaugh and that the Republicans were now working with Obama toward a new day. That's what he was hoping. He had had a meeting. He had had a dinner party with the conservatives he wanted to be known as the conservative leaders in Washington. George Will, Charles Krauthammer, Larry Kudlow, forget the 3 or 4 others. But he wanted them to stop listening to me. So he comes into office, warning the Republicans to forget me, because he was under the impression that they're afraid of me and they're afraid of me criticizing them, so they don't do what Obama thinks they should do. On this program on HBO Friday night, Shane Smith is the host. Said, Mr. President, you're leaving office soon. 2 terms, a lot of partisan politics, a lot of fighting, known for that. Seems as if it'll become even more paralyzed now that you're leaving. Where do you see politics going?
We have some structural problems in our politics more broadly that are creating greater polarization. The fact that our media has gotten so splintered, as recently as Bill Clinton's presidency, certainly with Ronald Reagan's presidency, the majority of people still consume their news from the nightly networks. And you had common basis of facts. And today, anybody with access to a website has an opinion. The Republicans are only concerned about what's on Fox News or what Rush Limbaugh is saying, and Democrats are looking at the New York Times or Huffington Post.
So Obama comes into office telling Republicans that they can't listen to Rush Limbaugh anymore and get things done. That's just not how it happens in Washington. And he's leaving office, having failed to remove one of his main impediments from his equation, and that would be me. So after 8 years, Obama, he comes into office with me living rent-free in his head, and I'm still there as he prepares to exit. We think, as he prepares to to exit. You notice, yeah, we want the good old days when it was just ABC, CBS, NBC, New York Times, Washington Post, because everybody was working off the same set of facts. Because everybody was working off the same set, the same narrative, the same propaganda. The Democrats have lost control of media now. Jim in Hanover, Pennsylvania. I want to start on the phones early today. Great to have you. How you doing, sir?
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Hey, I was listening to you talking about Maureen Dowd and Seth Meyers at the top of the show, and I was laughing because for the last 8 years, I haven't watched the news or the late-night talk shows or whatever. They're just not funny, and it's always depressing. But since the election, boy, I can't get enough of it. I just have to cut on the 6 o'clock evening news and I just laugh so hard. And I was thinking, you always talk about the college kids being snowflakes, but boy, the meltdown that I've seen Seth Meyers and some of those other ones do, it's just, they're not funny, but it's hilarious.
You can't pick a name. They're all melting down.
Every one of them is.
The New York Times just named its 6th White House reporter. They're going to have 6 people in the press room. 6 people covering Trump.
Oh, my. Yeah, it's just absolutely hilarious. I'm actually feeling celebratory this holiday season.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because can I share? I'm getting a little fed up with some of the pessimism that I'm hearing, not from any of you, but from friends of mine who are worried that the media stuff is going to win. It's a frustrating thing to me because I know a lot of people. No, I don't know a lot of people. I know some people. I'm sure you do too, who will not be convinced we've really won anything until the media changes. And that isn't going to happen. And so they look at the media not liking Trump, and they think it's failure. They look at media ripping Trump and destroying Trump, and they think it's going to work, and it means failure. And I get so fed up. I said, do you people not understand we're on the cusp here of one of the most exciting next 4 years, the growth potential, the potential of putting this country back together or getting started on that is off the charts. So I'm with robust optimism here, and I get a little fed up with these naysayers. So I'm glad to hear from you out there, John.
I think I may actually smoke a celebratory cigar, and I know you're an expert. What would you recommend?
A celebratory cigar. You can't go wrong with anything Padron.
Padron. Okay.
You choose your size. Choose. Some people like the Padron Maduros, the dark wrapper. I prefer the non-Maduro, but you can't go wrong with either one. Anything from Arturo Fuente.
Arturo Fuente.
Arturo Fuente. When I start doing this, I'm going to anger all these cigar people whose names I don't mention. Because I know them.
I just thought I have to smoke one, and I thought, man, you'd be the best person to.
Well, I am. There's no question on that.
Best aficionado, expert.
I am, and then there are differences in them, and there are some that are much better than others. I'm just gonna give you, the names. Fuente Don Carlos, number 2.
Fuente Don Carlos, number 2. I'm gonna have to try it.
Or one of the Padrones. There's Ashton. There's so many. Rocky Patel. Rocky Patel has, he's got a cigar named for Gary Sheffield, who played for the New York Mets, some other teams. And it's actually, The band is a picture of Sheffield. He's got one for Ray Lewis, too. But Rocky Patel cigars are fabulous, too. So, look, while I have you, as you probably know, every caller, this is the 4th week, gets to choose a new iPhone 7 or 7 Plus. And it's your turn. Would you like one?
Oh, my, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Now, what size would you like? Do you know the difference in the two?
Well, hey, Trump won, so let's go big.
Good for you. What's your carrier?
AT&T.
AT&T. So pick a color. What color do you want?
Black, or whatever you have the most of. Whatever's not moving fast enough.
I can cover you. You want black, jet black, or you want the matte black?
Well, what do you recommend? Whichever you have the most of. I'm not picky.
It's not a factor. Whichever I have the most of. It's when I start giving stuff away, I don't run out.
Oh, okay.
So,
well,
here's the thing: the jet black is both blacks are new, jet black and matte black. The jet black is an actual shiny piano black, and it has been the toughest to get because it's the toughest to make. It does show fingerprints on the back, but it has a different feel. It's not as slippery as in your hand. The matte black is just as gorgeous, but it's matte. It's not shiny, and it doesn't show fingerprints or any of that. Both have the same front. So,
well, I play the piano, not as well as your nephew, not by any means, but I do play the piano, so I'll go with shiny black then.
Shiny jet black. Okay, hang on. So now your AT&T shiny jet black. Let me tell you what, this phone's going to come unlocked. It'll work on any carrier. It has no SIM card in it. So what kind of phone do you have now?
It's a Chinese knockoff brand that I got in college, and all the college kids.
Irrelevant. So you'll have to take the new phone to an AT&T store. Tell them it's a gift, and they will know that it's unlocked because it doesn't have a SIM card in it. And tell them to move the number from the cheap Chinese knockoff that you have over to the new phone, and you'll be up and running. Hang on so we get your address and get it out to you. Appreciate it. That's Jim. Who's next? Where are we going next? That'd be Mindy in Cincinnati. Mindy, welcome. Great to have you with us on the EIB network. Hello.
Hey, Rush. It's Mindy. I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener. I'm concerned about Trump's picks about his cabinet now with Tillerson being appointed. I'm really kind of concerned about the small business guy.
Tillerson's choice as Secretary of State concerns you for the small business guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's appointing a lot of cabinet members that are businessmen, wealthy businessmen, billionaires, millionaires, and I'm worried how that's going to affect the small businessmen coming down the pike.
Why? What are you worried that these picks of his are not?
Well, I'm just afraid that that they're not gonna pay attention to the small businessmen. I'm afraid that with all these big billionaires being appointed to the cabinet, that they're going to forget about the little guy.
How so? Tell me how you think that's going to manifest itself.
Well, I just think that they're focused on big business. You know, they're trying to bring all this stuff back into the country. And I'm just worried that they're not going to, that they're not going to build up the small business guy. They're going to forget about him, and I'm just worried about that.
All right. Well, let me try to allay your fears. I don't detect any animus or lack of caring from Donald Trump on anybody in business. I think anybody in business, small, medium, or large, in his view, has the same set of problems, and that is obstacles put in their way by government regulators and various government agencies. And I think Trump wants America to be. He knows where most of the jobs are created in this country. I think he's got these successful big guys in there that he's choosing, and not all of them are in cabinet departments that have to do with business. He's got successful people who've navigated the waters, and these guys are not exclusive. They're not trying to deny anybody else success. These are the people that try to shower everybody with it and open up the avenues of success for practically everybody. That aspect, I don't have any concern about that. I don't think there's any evidence that Trump is uninterested or has any kind of an animus against small business people. I think it's just the opposite, in fact.
You think so?
Yes. Now, if you can cite me something specific that you've heard Trump do or say other than...
No, I just, with all the picks and just being so, he's going to have, the richest cabinet ever in presidency.
So what?
And
don't,
I know.
You're falling prey to liberal memes.
You're right.
You're falling prey to the notion that a rich person's not to be trusted, that a rich person doesn't care about anybody else, that the rich people are trying to arrange the deck only for themselves. It's not true. These are people who manufacture products and provide services they know the middle class has to be able to afford. If whatever you make or whatever you make and sell or whatever service you provide is priced in such a way that your own employees can't afford it, you're not doing something right. These people, I don't know about all of them, but I don't think any of them were born to this. I think they all started small. They know what it takes that's what Trump likes. They know what it takes to get there. They have done it. They have faced adversity. They've climbed the ranks. Rex Tillerson started at Exxon in 1974. It's the only place he has ever worked. And he didn't start in the executive suite. He worked his way up to it and had to win a very fierce competition to get CEO after Lee Raymond, who was the preceding CEO, retired. I'd be very, very careful about falling prey to the same things that liberals say about people. That is, rich people are automatically untrustworthy. They love to use class envy, and they love to attack the whole notion of trickle-down economics by pointing out the rich are miserly and they don't share and they don't give and they don't. It's all a bunch of. It's not true. You just wait and see. You'll find out I'm right here.
Yeah, I hope so. Anyway,
You will be. Now, what kind of phone you want? 7 Plus or 7?
7 Plus, please.
7 Plus. Your carrier?
AT&T.
Okay. Take your pick of colors.
Jet black.
Jet black. It will be yours. Yours also will come without a SIM card, unlocked. It'll work on any carrier. So, what kind of phone do you have now?
I actually have just a track phone.
A track phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With AT&T, it's like from Straight Talk.
Okay. Then take that phone and the new one to the AT&T store. They'll have to put a SIM card in your new one with your number on it, and they'll move it from that phone you've got now.
Wow.
And
thanks, Russ.
take it in the box. So they have all the numbers that go with it, and you tell them that it's a gift and that it's unlocked from the factory, and they'll set you up, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Don't hang up. You need to get your address. Back in just a second, folks. After chatting with Mindy, I checked something, and I found something from Bloomberg today. Small business owners' optimism skyrockets following Trump victory. And here's what this article at Bloomberg says. President-elect Trump's victory in the U.S. elections is a giant leap for small businesses, according to a survey of small business owners. The November reading of the National Federation of Independent Businesses Small Business Optimism Index jumped to 98.4 from 94.9. That's the biggest surge since 2009, Obama's first year in office, with all of the increase in sentiment coming after the elections held on November 8th. And among those who were surveyed following the election, the balance of opinion on whether business conditions were expected to improve skyrocketed from a reading of -6 to +38. Small business optimism is off the charts out there, Mindy, according to a Bloomberg story today. And look at who Trump is going out. Look at who one of his constituency groups is. White working people. Now, you might think that they work at major corporations, but these are not highly paid, wealthy people. They are the people Trump is championing. Those are the jobs that Trump is trying to save or bring back into the country, no matter who employs them. I would really guard against falling prey to any liberal criticism of conservatives and Republicans here, because it's rote and it's been made for decades, and it's rooted in the rich are out to get you, the rich are out to cheat you, rich CEOs and their companies are out to kill you. I mean, I just ignore it. These people are flailing away. They are melting down. They are imploding. But they're not going away. The hacking news will continue as we move into the next hour. But I saw a story also from Bloomberg. I'm sure you've seen it elsewhere. And the same reaction that I had all during the Obama years. Here's the headline. Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan back the CIA after Trump attacks the hacking probe. The two top Republicans in Congress offered strong support for the intelligence community yesterday, in sharp contrast to President-elect Trump's attack on the CIA after reports the agency found the Russian government tried to help him win the presidency. I'm going to tell you what I think. I don't know if I should. I've got dwindling seconds here. I think I will, but I got to take a break here, folks. But this... red flags, immediately I saw. They went up when I saw this headline, McConnell, Ryan, back CIA. Look, I understand the need for solidarity with the intelligence aid. They can do great damage to you if you buck them. But hang on. We'll continue here in mere moments. First hour in the can, El Rushbo serving humanity simply by showing up. I'll tell you a little bit about Rex Tillerson when we get back, and conclude my thoughts on the headline, McConnell, Ryan back CIA after Trump attacks their probe of the hacking of the election. Back here in just a second, folks. Greetings, my friends. Welcome back. Great to have you here. You are tuned to the most listened to radio talk show in America. Hosted by me, Rush Limbaugh, among the most talked about hosts in media today. Looking forward to chatting with you. Telephone number 800-282-2882. The email address lrushmo@eibnet.us. So I guess Kanye West showed up at Trump Tower today. And the drive-bys are all just a twitter and a flutter about this. And apparently what happened was Kanye West, recently out of the hospital for some sort of mental exhaustion, depression, typical Kardashianitis. Apparently he went back to New York, went into Trump Tower, they wandered in there. And Trump heard he was there and came down and met him and actually escorted him out of the building as he left. So people are saying maybe Kanye's going to perform at the inaugural ball. Maybe that's what this was. Trump's saying, I've known Kanye for a long time. I know all these, and he does. Trump knows all these guys. You know who's at Trump Tower right now? Jim Brown and Ray Lewis. Jim Brown of the Cleveland Brown. No, Jim Brown, he's not that left-wing radical. He's not as left-wing radical as he could be. I mean, he goes back and yeah, he's there with Ray Lewis. And there was some other, maybe an agent or something with them. Now, I don't know if they're there to meet Trump or if they're just, tourists, walking in and seeing what all the hubbub's about. Kardashianitis. That's what I call it. Kardashianitis. It seems to afflict everybody. Anyway, they're all upset about Kanye West. I don't understand what people don't get here. Kanye West is the prophet of low-information voters. Why wouldn't you want to hang out with Kanye West? I mean, if you're Donald Trump and you're trying to spread your realm and your sphere of influence everywhere, Kanye West, who is the prophet, I mean, he's the king of the low information crowd. By definition, if it's not Kanye, it's somebody like him. Anyway, folks, great to have you here. Rex Tillerson. I'll get back to McConnell and Ryan. It's like I said, yeah, folks, I don't want to be trapped by this narrative here of the Russians hacking the election, and that's why Hillary lost in Trump. I resent this. I told you yesterday. This whole thing is fake news. Everything about it is fake news. In fact, I'm going to tell you what I believe. I believe that whoever leaked this is not the Russians. I think it's an insider. I don't think this is the result of a Russian hack whatsoever. Now, the Russians and the Chi-Coms are trying to hack everything. That's one thing I'm not quite up to speed. No, I am up to speed. I'm not quite satisfied about. Where was all this concern about the Russians when they were hacking the Department of Defense, trying to hack the State Department, trying to hack Hillary's server? Where were all these calls for investigations? Until the Democrats end up losing an election, nobody wants to conduct an investigation to look at what happened. But when the world is turned upside down because the Democrats lose an election, why then all bets are off and we've got to go out and find out why. And it can't be that they had a lousy candidate. It can't be that the lousy candidate ran a bad campaign. It can't possibly be the American people have had their fill of Democrat failure after failure after failure. It makes perfect sense the American people are fed up with where this country is right now. It makes perfect sense that the American people want to change the direction. It makes perfect sense that people are fed up with losing jobs and not getting any wage increases and being told that America's best days have already happened. They're tired of this. They don't want to live in a country like that. They don't want to be led by people who seem to care more about certain groups of people than they do others. They don't want to be led by people who don't see us all as valid. I know the American people are sick and tired, half of them being told by the Democrats they're unjust and immoral because of their skin color. People are tired of it. It makes every bit of logical sense that Hillary Clinton would lose. She lost once. in 2008 in her own party. She failed to get Obamacare passed. She has written a book that nobody bought and nobody showed up at her book signings. There's no evidence that she has any attraction for a mass number of Americans ever about anything. The track record of Hillary Clinton is one of defeat, and it happened again. But the Democrats, you wouldn't believe the number of people out there saying the exit polls showed that Hillary won, and then she turns out to lose. That must mean there's fraud. These people are out of their minds, folks. They've literally lost their minds. They have been infected with a special kind of stupid. And our first caller today was, they are imploding. They cannot handle this. But the point is, they're going to continue imploding, and they're not going away. And they're going to do everything they can to try to delegitimize everything about Trump. His election, his presidency. I see it in two ways. It's a problem. It's going to have to be fought. It's going to have to be beaten back. And these people are going to have to be humiliated in defeat again. The time for kid gloves and powder puff days are over. These people have already been pounded into the sand by virtue of the election, and it must continue. I'm fed up with them. I've had this arrogance and this conceit that something's wrong in the world if they lose an election. It makes every bit of logical sense they would lose an election, and in an electoral college landslide. That does make sense. It computes. It's common sense. And I've had it with this idea that because they lose, something is desperately wrong with our institutions, and we need to find out what it is. And even if we have to get rid of the guy who won because he faked it, we got to put her in there. No way. These people have had their chance. They have shown they have the ability to wreck this country's economy, to doom this country's future. They don't see this country in an upbeat and positive way, and we do not need people leading this country who do not love it, who do not believe in it, and who do not think that its best days are ahead of us. We do not need people like that. All they can do is bring everybody else down, which they try to do. I've had my fill of it. So they launch these tirades. And it's like I said yesterday, I resent being pulled into this because this is a fake news narrative with fake facts, fake this, fake that, and I just resent, like I said yesterday, I did show prep, and I had two stacks, and 90% of one stack was about this CIA, Washington Post, New York Times report that the Russians wanted Trump to win, and so they pulled off some kind of magic. And that's what bugged me about McConnell and Ryan. There's a part of me, folks, that's the wrong way to put it. I believe that the people in the Washington establishment in both sides are not happy. I know they're not. I mean, there's no reason why they should be. An outsider has come in and literally taken control of it and is on the march. And he is redesigning virtually every system they have had in place that first and foremost protects themselves. From the lobbyists to the elected officials, to the cabinet people, to the bureaucrats in the various departments of government, to the certain aspects even of the establishment media. And Trump is just knocking it all over and casting it all aside. And what's the right way to put this? Let me put it this way. I will not be surprised. No, I don't want to put it that way either. Let me just say it. I think there's members of the establishment, both parties, who are biding their time and hoping against hope that Trump bombs. And all this talk about signing leg up to him and joining him and thinking he's great after they talked, I think it's BS. The establishment's the establishment. Some of them are going to try to trip Trump up. Some are going to wait until they think he trips himself up, and then they're going to make a move. And the first opportunity they get to demonstrate their loyalty, what do? They demonstrate their loyalty to the establishment. Just saying, I mean, it's undeniable what's happening out there, whether you want to call it what it is or not. There's been plenty of opportunity to get mad, demand investigations into the Russians. There's been all kinds of opportunity to demand investigations into the Chi-Coms, because both of them been trying to hack the Pentagon, been trying to hack the Defense Department, the State Department, the White House. I haven't heard anybody calling for an investigation into it until now. I have no doubt. And I don't think you should either. You need to keep your powder dry, as they say, and keep an open mind. McConnell, Ryan, back CIA after Trump attacks hacking probe. In one way, something never changes, does it? Media comes out. What this is it looks on the surface, whether it's this or not, it looks like it's the typical fear of the media and not wanting to get on the media's bad side. And right now the media narrative is that Trump stole the election with the help of Vladimir Putin, and the intelligence agencies say nothing. They don't have a shred of evidence. They just have analyst conclusions. The FBI says one thing, the CIA says another. And now people are saying, well, you know, the FBI looks at things in different ways. Rush. So what do you mean? Well, the FBI, they go into a case and they look at all the stuff they can accumulate to get an indictment and then a conviction. CIA not doing that. The CIA collecting evidence for intelligence gathering. Two different groups of people looking at the same thing will see different results and different characteristics. You want to get that convoluted to try to justify the fact that neither has any evidence. All they have is supposition. There isn't, just like there's no evidence of man-made climate change, there isn't any real evidence. There's just a lot of suspicion. The whole thing is fake news. And I see Republicans cozying up to that aspect of it. Little yellow flags raised, not red, little yellow flags. Now, Rex Tillerson. Rex Tillerson is the CEO of ExxonMobil. A man by the name of Stephen Coll, C-O-L-L, at the New Yorker, has written a book about Exxon, and as such, wrote a lot about Tillerson. In the process of writing his book, he was denied repeated requests for interviews from Tillerson, but he nevertheless got a lot of Tillerson's comments on the record, because in shareholder meetings and other public appearances where Tillerson spoke, he would show up and record them. This piece is in the December 11th issue of the New Yorker. Now, I don't know what Mr. Coll intended, but my take on this, I think, for any of you who have doubts about Tillerson, if you read this New Yorker piece, you're going to have a much more favorable impression of the man than if yours today is negative. I don't know if Coll intends that or not. I don't mean to be doing damage to his career here, but his piece makes me like Tillerson even more. Here's some detail, and I've always liked Tillerson for a host of reasons. But again, I've never stopped to think of Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. I've always looked at Tillerson as what he is, the CEO of ExxonMobil. The book that Steve Coll wrote is called Private Empire, ExxonMobil, and American Power. And he says here that Rex Tillerson's life has been shaped to a profound extent by two institutions, ExxonMobil and the Boy Scouts of America. Tillerson grew up in Texas. His father was an administrator for the Scouts, was not paid very much. Rex Tillerson himself became an Eagle Scout. He was an engineering major at the University of Texas in Austin. He joined ExxonMobil in 1975, and he's never worked anywhere else. Now, ExxonMobil is part of the Rockefeller oil monopoly, Standard Oil. And it is said that of all the oil companies that resulted from the breakup of Standard Oil, that Exxon is culturally the closest to John D. Rockefeller and the way he ran Standard Oil, which means that ExxonMobil is organized on principles of capitalism, Mr. Call describes it as ruthless capitalism. I think all of capitalism is ruthless. This is just what people don't know. Competition, real competition for sales of anything, competition for ideas. Competition is ruthless, period. It's not ruthless to people that don't like it. It's not ruthless to people that don't compete. But it can be brutal. And it's not a bad thing. Competition is where innovation comes from. Competition is where leadership comes from. Don't misunderstand. I'm not a person that sees perfection in things. Everything has its problems and faults. No individual is perfect. No group of people is perfect. But I am not one to believe that capitalism is flawed by virtue of its existence. The left is. The cutthroat capitalism, just to bring it down to an understandable level, the cutthroat capitalism in high tech would boggle your mind. The cutthroat capitalism competition going up to, say, Apple and Samsung, or Apple and Google, or Google and Microsoft. It's brutal, folks. You oftentimes don't see it, but it is. And it's certainly brutal in the oil industry, in the energy field. And so Tillerson is described here as working at Exxon, which is the direct descendant of John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil, which is organized on the principles of ruthless capitalism and Protestant faith. Exxon today is an unusually cloistered corporation that promotes virtually all of its top executives from within. Former executives say that as recently as the 1970s, it was not unusual for Exxon to start company meetings with a prayer. Rex Tillerson won the competition for the CEO job in 2004 when Lee Raymond retired. He directed substantial time and charitable activity toward the Boy Scouts. Take a break here in the midst of this because of the constraints of the programming format. We'll be right back. Don't go away. All right, let me read you a couple of more passages here from the Steve Cowell excerpt. Rex Tillerson. In public appearances, he comes across as sophisticated, yet his life is rooted in, listen to this line here, his life is rooted in environments that are fundamentally nostalgic for imagined mid-century virtues and for the days when burning fossil fuels did not threaten to trigger catastrophic climate change. So they're trying to say Tillerson is a guy whose cultural values are back in the 50s, Ozzie and Harriet, and he thinks you can burn all the oil you want without causing climate change. That is such a crock. The arrogant presumption of these people, it is a religion with them. You know, it's to them, big oil causing climate change is the same thing as Christians believing in the resurrection of Christ. And there's no arguing it. Except they are wrong. They're scientifically wrong, the whole thing. There's not even any evidence for it, other than computer models. Anyway, Tillerson, one of his favorite books, Atlas Shrugged. He loved Ayn Rand and her 1957 novel. Compared to the records of some of the other people around Trump, Tillerson is one of the most has some of the most professional integrity of all the people around Trump, according to this guy. Exxon is a ruthless, unusually aggressive corporation, but it is also rule-bound. It's built up a relatively strong safety record. It has avoided problems, such as prosecution under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, even though it operates in many countries that we can't find anything bad about the guy. We can't find a damn thing. Why, this guy even sponsored the Boy Scouts being opened up to homosexuals. They can't find anything about the guy except that he loves oil. So Rex Tillerson loves oil. It's all he's ever done. He's big in the Boy Scouts. And there are some people unhappy with Rex Tillerson on the conservative side of the aisle. Tony Perkins has come out against, Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council, as saying that Tillerson served as president of the Boy Scouts 2010 to 2012. In 2013, the scouting organization voted to extend membership to openly gay youths, and Mr. Tillerson was instrumental in lobbying the board to make that change, according to the Dallas Morning News in 2014. Tony Perkins thus raising concerns about Tillerson, calling the nominated Secretary of State the greatest ally liberals would have in the forthcoming Trump administration due to the oil and gas executive's stances on social issues. And gays in the Boy Scouts is just one thing that Perkins is raising red flags about. That's the only thing so far in this story. It's in the Washington Times. There was a political story. Where did you say? The Politico has a story that Tillerson has supported or is. Oh, I say. The Politico didn't. I don't read a Politico except when somebody sends something to me. So the Politico has a story quoting Perkins as saying that Tillerson also supported Planned Parenthood. Okay. So there's that. Tillerson, according to Tony Perkins, opened up the Boy Scouts to homosexuals and supports Planned Parenthood. Yet it's a devoutly religious guy. And he is devoutly religious. He goes to Bible study every week and attends church every Sunday, even as a busy CEO traveling the world making deals. Now, let's get to what the left doesn't like him. And by that measure, the left ought to love the guy, right? But they don't. Everybody's out there, oh, this is the worst thing that could have happened. Because he's a big corporate guy. I mean, that's like showing Dracula the cross. These people on the left, they can't get over the fact that Trump's got corporate success story after corporate success story after corporate giant after people that love to do deals. I think the left is going to go nuts. They already are. But, I mean, with as often as Trump, like Trump said today, he's delayed the press conference he was going to have on what kind of involvement he's going to have in his own business. But he assured people there won't be any new deals while I'm in the White House. Not going to do any deals. Deals. Won't be any deals. Deals are action. Deals are making things happen. And Tillerson's done a lot of deals, and Trump loves the... Do you know that Trump didn't even know the guy? Trump he knew of him, but he didn't know him. Somebody suggested you really need to talk to this guy, and they really hit it off over the fact that they both do deals. Doing deals, successful deals, being a big deal maker, and winning when you do it. I mean, it's a relatively small club. It's pretty rare air that those guys are breathing. And it does have a lot of commonality to it. And this is where the left doesn't like Tillerson. Tillerson's success with Exxon was attributable in part to the work that he has done in Russia. He has forged close ties with both Vladimir Putin and Igor Sechin. Sechin is the close Putin ally who runs one of Russia's oil and gas giants. Well, I'm sorry, but that would make sense. If you run the world's largest oil company and you're doing deals all over the world, what's your job running the largest oil? You got to find it. You got to find it. You got to go get it. You got to bring it out of the ground at a profit. You've got to go out and find it before anybody else does. You've got to be willing to go wherever it is. And it turns out the Russians have a lot. And so Rex Tillerson wanted to make deals. And he did. He made deals with Putin. He made deals with the Russians. And, of course, the Russians now are why Hillary lost. These people really think this. So anybody close to Putin, Satan, satanic, got to go. Well, the Hillary reset with Russia was no. Snerdley says, I thought the reset with Russia was supposed to be good. Look, I'm glad you said that because there's a point needs to be made. Up until this year, the Democrat Party was in bed with whoever ran Russia. other than Boris Yeltsin. They were in bed with the Soviet Union. They loved Khrushchev. They loved Brezhnev. They loved Yuri Andropov. They loved, I mean loved. It was bordering on obscene love for Mikhail Gorbachev. And I'm telling you, they just couldn't get enough. Wherever the Soviets wanted to expand, the Democrat Party was right in there helping them do it. Be it Cuba, be it Nicaragua, it didn't matter. Grenada, the Democrat Party was doing everything they could to stop Reagan, trying to limit Soviet expansionism. Told you yesterday about the story of the FBI, KGB files that were released after the Berlin Wall came down, the Soviet Union imploded. Ted Kennedy, actively working with Yuri Andropov, who ran the Soviet Union at the time, when one of the periods of time when Reagan was president. Kept asking Reagan, why don't you meet with the Russians? The Democrats were paranoid. They thought Reagan was going to nuke the world. And the Soviets were the only saviors we had. The only responsible people we had on the other end of the nuclear equation was the Soviets. They kept asking Reagan, the media, why don't you have a summit? Why don't you meet with them? He said, they keep dying on me. Why meet with somebody who's going to die the next day? Until they get somebody young in there who can make a deal that's going to hold up, I'm not going to talk to him. And it turned out to be Gorbachev. I went to at UC Davis when I lived in Sacramento. Gene Kirkpatrick, who was in the Reagan administration, came out and addressed the student body at UC Davis. This was like attending the Soviet Politburo Junior meeting in Moscow, and she came out, and one of the first words out of her mouth. You've got about 1,500 students at UC Davis who think the Soviet Union is the Garden of Eden. And she says the only difference between Mikhail Gorbachev and any other Soviet murderer thug is that he's alive. And this room of UC Davis students erupted. I started laughing myself silly, but the students were about to have a fit. And she said it with that look on her face of utter defiance. She was not one of these people that thought students were gods. Students were exactly what they were, ignoramuses. They were in positions of learning because they didn't know things. Other people regard students as experts on things, but she didn't. And so she was talking to them as though they didn't know what they thought they knew. And it just didn't sit well with them. Some of them started booing, some started throwing things. But the point is, the Democrat Party, leftists, socialists all over the world used to love the Soviet Union and Russia. And Obama was in bed with Putin. You've forgotten that shortly before 2012 election, Obama's been trying to get rid of our nuclear arsenal. He's trying to downsize it because Obama believes that our nuclear arsenal is destabilizing the world. It's part of my theory of Obama's chip on his shoulder that America is the problem in the world, not the solution. And he really believes this, folks. And he believes that our nuclear arsenal is why so many other nations engage in violence. They're scared to death of us, and they're out trying to protect themselves because they're just afraid we're going to attack them and wipe them out and conquer them, things that we don't do. We don't conquer, we liberate. We never have conquered. But Obama thinks that the U.S. military and our arsenal of weapons is the biggest threat to mankind. And so he's in the process of downsizing our nuclear arsenal. And apparently it wasn't going fast enough to please Putin. So Obama was caught on an open mic telling one of Putin's chief aides, Dmitry Medvedev, tell Vladimir, I'll have more flexibility after the election, meaning after I defeat Romney. I'll have a lot more flexibility to downsize our arsenal. So just tell Vlad to be patient. We had Hillary go over there with her plastic new reset button to reset the relationship with Russia after George W. Bush supposedly broke it. The Democrat Party has been buddy-buddy with Putin. They've been buddy-buddy with the Russians. They've been buddy-buddy with the Soviet Union. Now all of a sudden they hate them? Now all of a sudden the Russians become an enemy? Now all of a sudden Putin's a bad guy? I mean, John Kerry used to love Putin. It's the most amazing thing to watch, how the Democrats will flip allegiances on a dime. Anyway, back to Tillerson very quickly before we have to take a break. Tillerson forged a close relationship with both Putin and one of his big aides that runs the big oil business there, Igor Sechin. And in 2011, Tillerson flew to the Black Sea resort area of Sochi and signed a joint venture agreement with Putin under which ExxonMobil would partner with Putin's oil company, Russia's oil company, to produce oil from the Arctic. A project, are you ready for this? A project made easier by the retreat of Arctic sea ice due to global warming. What you're supposed to take, if you read this, what you're supposed to take away from this is this Tillerson guy, what a dastardly evil guy. He runs the business that's destroying the climate. He runs the biggest oil business that's causing global warming. He's causing the biggest melting of the glaciers in the North Pole ever. And then the SOB is going up and profiting by drilling for oil with the Russians. God, we hate this guy. But Exxon has nothing to do with the shrinking of the polar ice caps. Do you know what happens every year? Polar ice, the North Pole, because there are seasons. There's summer, there's spring, there's fall, even at the North Pole. Not like here, but the temperatures vary, and the sea ice always melts up there at some point. But you know what? What's been happening, this is what they don't tell you, that when it gets cold and it starts freezing, that the North Pole ice sheet is bigger than ever. Thicker than ever. So it makes sense that Tillerson and people who know what they're doing would wait for the proper weather conditions when there's been some melting and it's easier to get to the oil to bring it out because that's the name of the game. Tillerson partnered with Putin to make this happen. The main themes of this guy's book involve the ways that ExxonMobil saw itself as an independent, transnational corporate sovereign in the world, a power independent of the American government, one devoted firmly to shareholder interests and possessed of its own foreign policy. Well, now, wait a minute. Isn't that something Obama would like? We're all supposed to be globalists. Sovereignty to the United States, that's old-fashioned. That's yesterday. That's yesteryear. We're all globalists now. We must be citizens of the world, and we must treat the world as though we're citizens. No, there is not an Exxon that's an American company. It's a global company. So Tillerson runs it that way. And now they hate him. They hate Tillerson simply because they think they should. But Tony Perkins obviously has legitimate gripes and beefs. Quick timeout, my friends. We return your phone calls. Our next, don't go away. Anybody remember this kind of scrutiny with any of Obama's cabinet picks? It was universal love. And, of course, the Republicans are right in there. I remember Newt, when Obama announced his national security guy, I forget the guy's name, but Newt was going, oh, man, if you'd have told me that we were going to get a guy of this caliber in there, I would have told you that you were nuts. And then he picked Eric Holder and a bunch of Republicans. Whoa, this is the best pick anybody could have ever made for attorney. Remember that? And I'm sitting here pulling my hair out. Anyway, one more little line here from this New Yorker piece on Rex Tillerson. And remember now, this is supposed to be an indictment of the guy. That's why I think if you read it, you might end up liking him. The goal of ExxonMobil's independent foreign policy has been to promote a world that is good for oil and gas production. Because oil projects require huge amounts of money and only pay off fully over decades, Tillerson has favored doing business in countries that offer political stability, even if this stability was achieved through authoritarian rule. Now, the definition of that is that Tillerson would rather go to a place, if there's oil there, and he can increase his shareholder value, and if he can up his stocks, if he can get more oil out of the ground and be assured of more business, and the country's run by a dirtbag dictator that's going to be there for 20 years, he'll still do it. Because the goal of ExxonMobil's independent foreign policy has been to promote a world that is good for oil and gas production. That's supposed to be an indictment. To the left, that's supposed to tick people off. It doesn't me. I think it's so sensible as to be scary. I mean, it is just utter common sense. But again, I'm not a person who has a problem with oil. I think oil is the fuel of the engine of freedom. The more of it, the better. And we're nowhere near replacing it. It's a pipe dream. So the more we need it, and the more of it that we have and control, the much better off everybody is. Here's Mark in Farmington Hills, Michigan. Mark, great to have you with us to the EIB Network. Hello, sir.
Hello, Rush. I'm Ditto Head from back around the time of the bake sale, and when I say ditto, I mean it as the highest form of praise.
Well, you've been here a while. Thank you very much.
And I'm calling because I've been thinking about this since the early part of the election. I was watching Ed Rollins on a newscast and talking about how the establishment, once they get rid of all these other people, that they were going to clean house and get rid of people like me, who have voted straight ticket Republican since Ronald Reagan ran for president. And I've kind of been harboring a grudge since that point. And I guess I'm
not sure. Hold it a minute. Ed Rollins said get people like you, rid of people.
Well, he was spewing all this hatred about the fact that people like in the Tea Party and people who were highly conservative, that once Bush was going to be elected again, that they were going to clean house.
Well, from the beginning of that campaign, remember now, the Jeb Bush campaign strategy was to win the nomination without winning the base. And I didn't hear Ed Rollins say what you say, but if he did say that, that's what he was carrying the water for.
Well, my question is now that the shoe's on the other foot, since I know that he did say that, is it possible that people like him will have their house cleaned, so to speak?
Well, no. They'll bide their time. They're convinced Trump's going to implode still at some point, and they're going to be there to pick up pieces. I mean, that's their mindset. Look, I've got to go. Tell Snurdly what kind of iPhone 7 or 7 Plus that you want, carrier, color, and all, because I don't have time to ask you. Right? Be back after this, folks. Man, oh man, fastest 3 hours in media. 2 of them already in the can on the way to Limbaugh Broadcast Museum, the virtual museum, which Obama just announced he's going to have. Ha! Wonder where they got that idea. Seriously. Just a couple more things on Rex Tillerson and on to other things right after this. Right on. Great to have you with us, my friends. El Rushbo behind the golden EIB microphone, doing what I was born to do. And having the time of my life. It's great to have you as part of all of this. Our telephone number, if you want to be with us, 800-282-2882. The email address, elrushbo@eibnet.us. Pardon me for a minute, folks. I just have to say one clarifying thing to people today who have been given brand new iPhone 7 Pluses. That's what the 4 that we've given away today have requested. Every caller this week, last week, week before, into our 4th week now, every caller gets a free iPhone or iPhone 7 Plus, whichever they... Oh, you know what I want to add to this? We've got these people's address. I want to give them all a subscription to Rush 24/7 as well. I meant to start that yesterday, and it slipped my mind. So we've got the data to make it happen. So you give it to whoever can make that happen, and we'll start these people. Limbaugh letter, Rush 24/7, 1 year, plus the phone. Now, to those of you who have won, the phones that you're getting are unlocked, which means they'll work on any carrier. And I told all the people today that the phones will have no SIM card. It is possible. So I don't know how old all the phones here are. And I can't check this without opening them, and I don't want to open them. I want you to have them still in the cellophane-wrapped, shrink-wrapped boxes like brand new. They might have a Verizon SIM card in them. And you told me you wanted AT&T. It's not a problem. All Verizon phones, Verizon iPhones, are unlocked. They will work on any carrier. They don't become locked until you actually make a deal with a carrier. Well, these phones don't have any deal attached. So the people that I told today, just take the phone to AT&T. and tell them you want your number moved to the new phone. You might, I don't think it's likely, but there might be a Verizon SIM card. And I don't want the AT&T people to tell you, well, this is a Verizon phone, they can't hook this up. They can. You just have to tell them it's unlocked, that the phone was a gift, and just to put an AT&T SIM card in it, and it will work. I told them all that there's no SIM card, and it's probably true, but there might be a couple of them that have Verizon SIM in them. So, but it doesn't matter. If yours has, if your gift iPhone for me has a Verizon SIM card in it, it'll work on any carrier. Unless you sign it up with Verizon, then it becomes locked there. But before you do that, it'll work on any carrier. One more thing here about Rex Tillerson from this story in the New Yorker, and then other things. Although ExxonMobil hires former State Department, former Pentagon, and CIA officials from time to time in order to bolster its political analysis and negotiations, some of the Exxon executives that the author interviewed spoke about Washington with disdain, if not contempt. Some of the Exxon executives that Steve Kahl at New Yorker spoke with regarded the State Department as generally unhelpful, a bureaucracy of liberal career diplomats who were biased against oil, and they were incompetent when it came to sensitive and complex oil deal negotiations. They managed Congress defensively, and just as one capital among many in the world, a place more likely to produce trouble for Exxon than benefits. Now, let me translate this for you. Again, I don't know Steve Kahl. I don't know if he's liberal, conservative, if he's New Yorker, tend probably to be liberal. But his piece here, I think, is going to end up having more people like Tillerson than maybe he intends. What he's basically saying here is, and I don't know how many people, when you think of Exxon, you know, because of the success that the left and the media have had in poisoning the minds of people about corporate America. I mean, the Democrat Party's enemies list, look at it. It's every major, not just corporation, but industry. Big oil, hated and despised. Big pharmaceutical, hated and despised. Big retail, that would be Walmart, hated and despised. Go down the list. Liberals instinctively hate big corporations. They don't even think they're people. And they proudly say that. That's who liberals are. And that's who's in the State Department, specifically now after 8 years of Obama. So Exxon hires a bunch of former government workers to help it do business. It hires former CIA agents. It hires former State Department employees. Exxon hires people that used to work in the Pentagon. This is serious business. The oil business is serious business. The world could not survive without oil. Our world as we know it could not survive. The United States standard of living would plummet if the left succeeded in getting rid of oil. Airplanes would not fly. Automobiles would cease to be useful. You couldn't heat or air condition your home for long. Getting rid of oil would take us back to the 17th or 18th century. It was an absolute disaster. It is serious business. Oil is also very serious geopolitical issue. It's not just a game. It's not just oil wells and J.R. Ewing in Dallas and it is very, very, and it's highly competitive. It's cutthroat competitive. You can't make oil. You have to go find it where nature has made it. In some places it's hard to get it. Other places it's easy. There's all kinds of competition to get it. Everybody wants to have as much of it as they can. The United States, as you know, has been dependent on foreign oil for the longest times. We're now approaching a point in time where that will be unnecessary. We have, now that we can get oil out of shale and now that we can get oil via frack and natural gas, we are becoming a net oil and energy supplier. We have everything we need, or soon will, and then some. And it changes the game dramatically. OPEC has never been weaker. OPEC and the oils, the Saudis are cutting back on production to try to maintain price. I mean, it is a cutthroat business. And you have to go where the oil is. And it's going to take you to places that you'd rather not go. It's going to take you to countries that are run by absolute reprobates. But that can't stop you. It's too crucial. It is much too important. We can't survive as we know survival without oil, the free flow of oil at market prices. Practically everything else in this world is dependent on that. And so these people at Big Oil who risk capital and time and people in trying to get it are not the bad guys everybody thinks they are. And Exxon is its own little entity. It has its own State Department, for example. It does its own negotiations with other countries, and it cooperates with the United States when necessary, the State Department, and so forth. And what this passage here means is that all of these experts that Exxon has hired, they've got plenty of oil executives. They got plenty of people who know oil. They've got I went to high school with a guy that works for ExxonMobil. He's what he does is secret. He can't tell us. I've been to 2 high school reunions where he got an emergency call and had to split and go over to Vietnam for some reason. It's cutthroat. And no, this is after the Vietnam War. This would be sometime in the early 90s. My point is that Exxon staffs itself with people who know. They probably have their own version of tax defense partners. I'll bet you the IRS has an office at ExxonMobil. I'll bet you the IRS is there every day. In fact, I know they are. The IRS in major corporations has agents actually on site. Taxes have to be prepared on a daily basis. It's a whole different world, folks. And so they've got these people that have experience working with foreign governments all over the world, from the Pentagon, from the CIA, from the State Department. And this passage in the book says that many of these people just do not trust the current State Department because it's populated with a bunch of liberals and leftists who despise oil and suspect anybody in that business. And they're right. Why would that? They don't need to be surrounding themselves with people that want to harm them or retard what they do or have an animus against them. So they have to work around it. And I will guarantee you that Trump, in listening to Rex Tillerson describe how he has to succeed, what he has to do, I guarantee you Trump was blown away. I'll bet you anybody would be. To hear what actually is required and necessary to succeed in that business. And once you hear what's necessary to succeed in that business, then you say, well, is that experience worth anything to me for somebody as Secretary of State? That's for Trump to decide. We'll find out if Tillerson's confirmed and if he gets the job. But the idea that the people opposing him are these lifetime career bureaucrats and diplomats who've never done what Tillerson's done, who may resent what Tillerson does, who may have an animus against Exxon, and we're supposed to pick people like that? This is what Trump's election means, is that we're not going to be governed by people like this anymore, at least for a while. We're not going to be held back. We're not going to be governed by a bunch of egghead nobodies who haven't accomplished anything in the real world. You can have all the academicians and theorists and faculty lounge lizards you want. But until you have practical, real-world experience doing things, you really can't say that you're qualified. But the left thinks that all you need for qualifications is for somebody to be an appropriately educated egghead and an intellectual with theoretical knowledge about how things work, but who have never actually done it, because the people who actually do it, well, they're suspects. We're very suspicious of them. So I'm not one of these people that's just instinctively opposed to people like those that Trumpers. I mean, if you voted for Trump, this is what you voted for. If you're excited about Trump, this is what you're excited about. You're excited about doing this a different way. Folks, we've had 8 years of abject failure, 8 years of abject stagnation. We've had, and longer than that, actually. But certainly focused in these last 8 years. We know how to fail. We know how to retard our growth. We know how to put the country in decline. We know how to penalize America. We know how to run around and feel guilty about America. We need people who look at America and love it. We need people who love and respect America and believe that America's greatness is the best thing for the world. Because it is. It always has been. It's not a braggadocious statement. We are the people of the world who, because of our freedom, have created a standard of living and a technological innovation record of progress unlike any that has ever been seen. And it is because of our documented freedom in the founding of our country, the belief in the power of individuals pursuing excellence and the best they can be. Doers, shakers, people that make things happen. As opposed to people who look at the United States and think that it's the problem in the world. Want some names? Madeleine Albright, John Kerry, Barack Obama, Valerie Jarrett, Samantha Power. Practically anybody in the Obama administration thinks the United States is the problem in the world and that we're guilty of something, well, maybe a lot of things. And we have a lot of apologies to make. And we have a lot of crow to eat. We have quite a bit of our size that needs to be knocked down a peg or two so that we learn what it's like. We don't need to be led by people like that. We've been there, done that. If you voted for Trump, you voted for a different kind of greatness, a different kind of action. And that's what this administration is going to be. My hope is the left isn't going to be able to keep up with it. We shall see. Reuters has a story. The top U.S. spy agency has not embraced the CIA assessment on Russian hacking. What do you think the top U.S. spy agency is? It's the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Guy works for the president. This guy, his name happens to be James Clapper. But they are suspected to be ahead of the CIA in certain assessments and so forth. And so they're not necessarily embracing the CIA assessment. What this really boils down to, here's what the left wants you to believe happened. That the Russians have been hacking us for years, trying to and succeeding. And in the last election cycle, they hacked both the Republicans and the Democrats. But because Putin didn't want Hillary to get elected, he wanted Trump to be elected, they didn't reveal anything that they had hacked from the Republicans. They only revealed and released to WikiLeaks what they got from Podesta, his emails and other things. Now, the Republicans said, we were not hacked. The story is fraudulent. We were not hacked. The story is fake news. Anyway. And frankly, I am shocked. I don't mind admitting this. I'm shocked to see the numbers of people from across the political spectrum that are signing on to the premise that the Russians had something to do with this election. I'm stunned to see it. It crosses the spectrum, folks. There are people, yep, it's very bad. We need to get an investigation. We need to seriously look into it, shouldn't we? I mean, everybody would want that, right? If the Russians have been involved. I'm so sick and tired of Democrat Party created narratives becoming accepted without any question. And then everybody signing on. And I think one of the reasons so many people that when I'm talking about establishment types and others is because there's still so much resentment for Trump. Everywhere. Resentment that he won, resentment of his personality, resentment that he continues to be loved and adored by the people that voted for him. It's there, folks. It's simmering even among people who want you to think they've seen the light and are big Trump supporters. Don't doubt for a moment that that crowd still hoping and thinking Trump will implode is still there. Quick timeout. Your phone calls are next when we get back. And look at this, the NFL no longer going to do Pink October. The NFL's league-wide commitment to breast cancer is over, but there's going to be a replacement for it. Instead, individual teams will be able to choose their own cancer cause to support next season. The NFL has informed its teams in a league-wide conference call at Pink October. It was a 3-week period in October in which teams dressed up the fields, the sidelines, and the player uniforms in pink to raise awareness and money for breast cancer will not continue next year. Our morning update today, folks, was about the Trump administration sending a questionnaire to current employees. These are federal employees at the DOE, the Department of Energy. And one of the questions asked which of you, I'm paraphrasing, which of you have worked on climate change? It basically asked, who among you buys into the Obama version of climate change? Raise your hands. Who among you have worked very hard on this area? And these employees are having a fit. They claim that it's a breach of privacy. And they have refused to provide Trump's transition team with the list of names of people who have attended various climate meetings. Bloomberg reported that Trump's team had sent a questionnaire to the employees at DOE asking about a variety of programs and activities. Some of the questions asked for a list of employees or contractors who have attended United Nations climate meetings, as well as meetings on the social cost of carbon. Employees at the Department of Energy said this request was alarming and intimidating, and they are refusing to answer. I need to give you people in the Department of Energy a little lesson on the real world and how it works when we come back, and about regime change. So hang on for that. Okay, Energy Department. Very simple. The Trump team is a different team. They don't believe man-made global warming, and they don't want secret employees in the Department of Energy undermining. This is a mistake Bush made. Bush left a bunch of Clinton people in office in 2000 to show goodwill, trying to mend fences after Florida 2000. So he left a bunch of Clinton appointees in various places, including the Justice Department, State Department. It's never a good idea, but it's Bush's business, and it's the way he wanted to do things. But it's not Trump. Trump wants to clear the stable. He wants people who think the way he does. It's his entitlement. He won the election. These are appointed positions. These are government employees. They are employees. And if you don't like the way the boss runs, you've got two things you can do. You can either button down and accept it, or you can quit. I've told people I was fired, been fired, it might be 8 times, 7 or 8 times. And one time I got fired in this business, a lot of times for nothing to do with behavior, insubordination. I was working at a station that played oldies. And the owner decided he wanted to sell it, and he did, and the new owners decided to change format to Chinese opera or some such thing. We all got fired. Not because we were bad people, but we didn't want to play Chinese opera. I wouldn't have stayed anyway. What kind of future is there? It was not Chinese opera, but it was some cockamamie music format that wasn't going to take me anywhere. And these people they were under no obligation to keep me. Well, you people at the DOE, and you resent Trump's questions to try to find out what you believe and what you think in there. This is his Department of Energy now. He was elected by the people with specific reasons. He told people what his energy policy was. These government bureaucrats, in many cases, act like they're untouchable and that they can't be forced to do things that they don't want to do. It really is kind of an ignorance of the way the world works. Now, some people might be nervous at the Trump questionnaire, trying to find out, okay, who among you has traveled to the United Nations? Who among you have participated in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change? Who among you have traveled to various climate change and global warming conferences? They're trying to weed out the rabble. I don't know about folks. This is the kind of stuff that needs to happen. The Democrats do it. When they win, they don't leave opponents in positions of power. Clinton fired all 93 U.S. attorneys when he took office. All 93 of them. Nobody said a word. When Bush did it, they all had a cow. But it's tradition. The president puts U.S. attorneys in office that see things as he does. And it ought to be that way at state, and it will be. And it ought to be that way at the Department of Energy, and it will be. And it ought to be that way at the Department of Commerce, and it will be. I don't care that the media has a cow. I don't care that the left and the Democrats have a cow. I don't care that young little tech bloggers and millennials who think that government is God worry that Trump is going to get rid of the Department of Energy. We only have the Department of Energy because Nixon created it to try to curry favor with the left, the same way with OSHA. Who says we need a department? Why do we need a Department of Education? When you get right down to it, why does the federal government need to be in charge? That's why we have states. Because we need regulations to rein in killer capitalists. Yeah, right, that's why. Hey, look, the idea of big, intrusive government has not gone away, and it needs to be pared way back. And we don't need people inside government sabotaging and undermining the duly elected president when he comes in. And if the duly elected president wants to make sure that wants to try to get rid of all the potential ne'er-do-wells, more power to him. These are employees. They're not bosses. They didn't run for election, and they didn't win. Here is Carol in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Great to have you on the EIB network. Hi.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
I'm calling to make two comments on your Rush Revere book series.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
The first one is to thank you for writing the series. I'm the grandmother of a child who has dual citizenship. Her father is from Great Britain. Her mother is an American. So, and this child attends a British international school, and your books give us the chance to tell our side of the story, and for that, I'm thrilled.
Oh, thank goodness. Well, now, where does your daughter actually attend school? Your granddaughter?
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. And it's a British international school in Hong Kong. And
That's
am I
right.
correct in assuming that the American founding is not high up on the curriculum?
You're correct.
Yeah.
Yes, you're correct. But even though, and we have a friendly rivalry with our the other grandparents.
Right. Well, they're Brits. I mean, they're people that we beat. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot in common.
Right.
But my husband, bless his heart, at the wedding reception many years ago in Hong Kong, made a toast to Yorktown, which didn't go over too big.
Yeah, bet.
And my son-in-law refers to us as the colonies. So we do have this tit for tat.
Well, so how do my books help? I mean, because are they taking them to school?
No. I just ordered book one. This child is 7, so she's learning to read, and I looked through the list to see which were the appropriate grade level.
Well, that'd be a good starter. That's a great one to start with.
My second comment is your 5-star reviews on these books number in the thousands, like 6,000.
Isn't that incredible? You mean on Amazon? Isn't it incredible?
Yeah. Well, I'm a former school teacher who taught civics, 9th grade, and when I read reviews, and I'm going to read the book before I send it on. But what I thought after I saw those reviews is that because you have so many readers, I don't know the legalities of doing something like creating an internet link so that kids who have read these books in various cities can meet one another like a book club and
well, we don't quite have that, but there is a Facebook Rush Revere page where they can all go, because what happens is that kids who read the book send pictures of themselves opening the boxes, dressing up as the characters in the book. The families send videos and pictures of their kids acting out various...
Oh, that's
it's facebook.com/Rush Revere, and anybody can go there. Now, actual... linkage one to another.
Meeting, yeah.
You can do it on Facebook.
Well, I'm an old person, so I like that face-to-face.
Right.
Because it creates conversation.
Well, we're doing that with a bunch of homeschool people, too. But I'm glad you brought up the reviews. Reviews are off the charts. On Amazon, the 4- and 5-star reviews, it's incredible. I'm glad you remind. That's one aspect I never talk about that, and I should, because that's actual feedback from readers. And some of the reviews on Amazon that people that take time to write are just out of this world. It's extremely, extremely flattering, and I'm really glad you mentioned that. And look, I'm really pressed on time here, Carol, but every caller gets a new iPhone 7 or iPhone 7 Plus if you would like one. Would you like one?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Let me guess. You want a black iPhone 7 Plus?
It's for my husband.
Well, what is that what he wants? You can take it whatever color you want, whatever size.
A black matte.
The black matte as 7 or 7 Plus?
7 Plus.
And what's his carrier?
Verizon.
Got you covered. Don't hang up. We'll get your address. You'll have it tomorrow in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Back after this, my friend. Carlos in Los Angeles. Great to have you with us, sir. How are you doing?
Hello, sir. Nice talking to you. I just want to tell you my story. I used to listen to the news only, in my native language, which is, Spanish. And I used to notice that they were not being fair in the news. They were talking only against the Republican Party all the time. And I remember, Raj, that one day they were pronouncing a name. And I was, well, who the heck is that guy? I said to myself, who the hell is that guy that they talk so much, but in a negative way? So one day I was listening, to the radio station, and I decided to change the radio station. Then there was a guy talking. Then I remember that I liked what he was saying, and I left it on for 1 minute. And I really liked the guy, the way he talked. You know what? I said, this is something, new, and I like this guy. And that guy happens to be Rush Limbaugh. And I said to myself, oh my God, this is not even close to what they're saying to us in our language. They're not even, these guys are lost. And since that day, I haven't stopped listening to your show. It's been almost 1 year.
Wow.
Well, it's been almost 1 year. Univision, they don't have any idea the kind of favor that they did to me. Because thanks to them...
Well, I'm glad they did it, Carlos. They talked so badly about me, they made you curious. You had to find out, and look what happened. Now, Carlos... You get to choose what you want, an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus. I don't have time to ask or get your answer here, but Mr. Snerdley will. Whatever you want, and we'll take care of it. You'll have it tomorrow. Thank you so much for the call. We'll be right back here, folks, to wrap up. We have some holdovers for tomorrow, such as this. Scientists want to give the atmosphere an antacid to relieve climate change. We're surrounded by a special kind, a new kind of stupid here, folks. It just there's no way around it.